Welcome back to Pitso on SABC Lehae. The pressure is mounting as consumers are preparing for Christmas, preparing to go home for the holidays, and money is scarce and so many are counting their pennies. Due to these circumstances, many may find themselves borrowing money and falling into debt traps. We have Morris Maluleke on Zoom that will help us discuss these matters. Mr. Maluleke, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Pitso. Let's start here. What can we do to curb the crisis of overspending during December?
Good morning, Pitso, and the viewers. Thanks for having me. I think the same gospel that we preach on every year as NCR is that we always encourage consumers to try and actually shop around and avoid buying on credit, because that's where the problem is, and the tendency of wanting to buy things that they don't need at the wrong time. So the only way is to get them involved and making sure that they actually participate in encouraging those that are around them to try and actually save and not buy on credit things that are unnecessary, like maybe buying airtime, for instance, as an example, buying on credit or buying food on credit. So hence we always urge consumers to refrain from actually engaging in such.
Mr. Maluleke, you spoke about encouraging consumers to have the habit of saving. And when we look at the current economic state, one might argue that, but there's nothing to save because, salaries have been cut, jobs have been, people have been retrenched from jobs. So how do I save while I don't have much or enough?
Remember, the best we can do where possible is to try and actually downgrade. What I mean by downgrading is try not to actually want to improve your lifestyle because your neighbor or anyone around you or your friends are actually in this branded clothing, or maybe wanting to buy the best car. So what we are saying is try to live with what you have, and as much as possible, a little bit that you have to save. When we talk about saving, we are not saying save a huge amount, but try to save. You start small and try to actually a bit increase where possible. Where you get a bit of an increase, because they do get increases. The thing is, cost of living with interest rates going up, it's difficult to actually save a larger amount where you will actually have enough to can actually use at the end of the day. But by all means, it's important to try and actually save as little as possible and not incur more debts because you have received maybe your increase, or maybe you have actually paid off one of the debts. So what we are trying to say is try to stick to your what you can afford.
So what would you say about those buy now, pay later deals? What's the catch there?
Look, there will always be a catch. I mean, anything that is too good to be true, it's always very suspicious. Remember, when you try to actually defer your debt in terms of repayment, there will be interest or any other charge added to it. So we wouldn't actually encourage consumers to actually fall into such. We also have a challenge in terms of false advertising, which are very attractive, and hence it is important for every consumer to make sure that they do a bit of shopping around and making sure that they actually read the details in whatever that is actually sold to them, and not just fall into what they see at face value.
So a new year is starting. 2024 is just around the corner, and now December, we are excited. We want to spend. What message do you have to consumers, encouraging them to enjoy Christmas or the festive season, but also keeping in mind that January is a long month that requires a lot. School fees needs to be paid and stuff like that. What would you say to them?
Okay. I think as consumers, we are all aware that come January, you'll have to buy stationery for your kids. You'll have to actually have money for transportation. And in December, you know that you're going to spend with family and friends. So, like I'm saying, this is the time where you shouldn't be stressing about your debts. But what we can encourage them to do is always try to actually draw a budget, live according to your budget and stick to it, and avoid making credit where it's unnecessary. where possible, from the beginning of the year, try to save for December, try to actually save for the stationery comes January, or where possible, try to actually buy stationery in December, and try not to enter into any credit agreement or maybe into debts this time of the year, because a lot of consumers fall victims to such. And as we are saying, it is important that whatever credit agreement that you enter into, request for the pre-agreement quotation, which will actually give you time to go through it, and you can be able to make a decision whether you can continue with that debt or not. So it's important to draw your own budget. It's important to make sure that you don't incur debt and telling yourself that, you know what, you will make a plan, you know. And at the end of the day, if you can't afford it now, what makes you think that in January or any other month you'll afford it? Hence we say, please live according to your means. And for anything that you have been experiencing in the past years, especially when it comes January, try to actually save during the course of the year. What we mean by that, plan your budget, stick to your budget, don't incur debts, don't fall a victim into those misleading adverts that are actually sold to us. Like I said, avoid buying food and other things on credit. Even if you have to buy things on credit, shop around. Shopping around, what we mean by that is that remember interest and other charges comes with any credit that you actually apply for.
Mr. Maluleke, thank you so much for joining us. That is Morris Maluleke talking to us about spending as looking at the festive season wherein we are all excited. We want to spend money, and he was just encouraging us to say, you know, let's just have the habit of buying things and not on credit, but let's just shop around in order to make sure that come January we still have enough money to last us through the entire month. For now, let's go to the break, and Pitso continues after this. Welcome back to Pitso on SABC Lehae. 87% of Northern Cape's drinking water systems are in a poor or critical performance, a severe deterioration in drinking water quality since 2014, with Gauteng and the Western Cape's drinking water systems in excellent performance. Also, 64% of the wastewater treatment works are at high or critical risk of discharging partially treated or untreated water into rivers and the environment. These are parts of the 2023 Blue and No Drop reports and the Green Drop Progress Assessment findings released by the Department of Water and Sanitation yesterday. The reports come as many municipalities are facing no water or limited access to clean and quality water. To talk more about the state of the country's water, let's hear what the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Sandom Mchunu, had to say.
We are moving on. We have said we are now in an era where we have to review and deal with fundamental issues. The fundamental issues here is one, that municipalities in South Africa, which are water service authorities, which are the ones that supply water to your house, have declined to a point where, in terms of their capacity, we need to intervene. And how we are intervening on this matter, we have said from now on, the water service authorities need to appoint water service providers. That is in accordance with the Water Services Act, so that you have a Johannesburg-like situation where the municipality is an authority, but they have a specialist entity on the other side called Johannesburg Water, which is solely focused on water provision to households in a specialist kind of way, just professionally, managerially, going on to perfect the situation of managing water. And this includes billing collection and using that money to invest back to water infrastructure, which is the source of the problem. Now, your comment on, it's not true, absolutely not true, that President went to Kanyagodu to open a tap. There were 469 other taps in the same area. He couldn't go to all of them. I'm just correcting that, but we're here to say we are not stopping at what we are saying. I myself have said I don't want to be a minister of lamentation. I don't want to lament and keep on lamenting. I know at the same time that in water service authorities, which are municipalities, they are legally there, they are constitutionally there in terms of the frame, but we take over a responsibility as the leader of the sector, and as such, we are taking action to say, this is not going to work for quite some time, and therefore let us introduce these measures.
To continue with the Water Quality Report, we are now joined by the Executive Manager at the Water Research Council, Mr. J. Bagwan. Mr. J, welcome to Pitso on SABC Lehae. You know, back in the day, I would just go to a tap and drink water and feel nothing, but now it's quite risky to drink water from the tap because the quality of our water has dropped. What is the cause of the drop?
Well, you know, like highlighted by the minister, and, you know, I think we should congratulate him and the department to take this bold step in, you know, launching the blue drop, green drop reports, etc. You know, after 2014. It's a very important step. It's a very bold step, but it's also sending a very strong message that you know, our house is not in order and we need to fix it and fix it very quickly. And, you know, the measurement of it, you know, comes on the back of what we're seeing on the reliability of our systems. And, you know, what is very transparent that, yeah, you know, there's certain areas in this country where drinking water from the tap is very risky. And the consequences of it, you know, sit sometimes not at a technical level, but there's also the broader issues that we need to start fixing. And when you start looking at the data and the intelligence in the data that has been provided, it starts giving you some very important facts when you overlay, you know, the information on it. So, for example, in the Northern Cape, we do have infrastructure for water supply and sanitation. But, you know, what's glaring when you start looking at the data around the number of professionals, around the number of specialists and skills in this province that are supposed to be there to run these systems, you know, glaringly, they're not there. And then you start understanding why the systems are not working. Similarly, when you look at the same pattern, you know, in Gauteng, and we have the privilege, you know, that, you know, amongst many places in the world and the developed countries in the world, in Gauteng, we can still open the tap and drink water, you know, quite successfully. I mean, we haven't reached that stage. So we're privileged in Gauteng when you look at those kind of data that we have a very good technical outfit and competencies right from the water board level in RAN water, which you can say is the world leader, you know, in terms of treatment of bulk water, and we're privileged to have that, you know, to the municipal level where, you know, we have a good assurance of drinking water quality that we still can drink from that tap. But yes, you know, this is the kind of what the information is telling us around that, you know, in areas, again, like the Northern Cape and Limpopo, that the layers of issues are poor governance, lack of capacity and skills, the issues of inequity, you know, of issues of revenue, etc. These are the kind of hidden facts that people don't talk about, that many of these places, you know, are suffering the consequences of these many factors and elements with the issues of vandalism that are emerging as well. So, yeah, you know, it's a complicated issue, but you have to look at the report in detail. When you unpack it with the information and the data that is there, what you will see that 60 to 70% of all the domestic water supplied in this country are in the big cities and the 9 metros. And generally, what you're seeing is that there is a fairly good assurance of water supply from drinking and quantity that is there. Of course, the demands are changing, the challenges are changing as well, but the user behavior is a very key element that also needs to start aligning. And it's a collective responsibility for all of us individually, at a municipal level, at a national level, to work together to turn this around, to our benefit, to our water security. So I am fascinated that this data and information is there to allow us to tackle the problems. Of course, it looks very dismal, and we have to acknowledge that of where we are. But again, I need to also commend the minister and his team for the leadership, around taking this by the horn and saying, guys, let's work together to fix this problem.
So, Mr. Bhagwan, is it possible that there are diseases that could have been contacted due to poor water quality?
Yeah, look, we haven't, if you look at the NICD, daily databases around incidences of water-related diseases, we don't see that high prevalence of waterborne diseases that are being reported. I mean, not at the scale that it's at a pandemic or an epidemic and those kinds. We have odd incidences of waterborne or pathogenic related diseases, but they're very isolated. We haven't seen, big outbreaks of cholera, big outbreaks, of waterborne and fecal-oral diseases in the country. So yeah, where you not where people do not trust the water supply, they are taking measures of disinfecting and managing the systems. And on the back of the blue drop, the green drop, the no drop report, the Water Research Commission has also published what we call the barometer study. That kind of overlies people's perception on the level of water services. And what we're seeing from that survey is, yes, there is a decline in people's perception because of, this concern around the deteriorating levels of services. But overall, I mean, 80% of people in the urban areas still have a very high confidence on the quantity and the quality of water that is supplied. That has gone down, from 2015. It was at about 88%, and you can see those trends. The bigger problem is the dissatisfaction is in rural areas where, like I said, largely when you unpack the data, you start seeing the patterns that, the rural areas are the areas that are, finding a lot of problems in delivery of good water services.
Mr. Bhagwan.
And again, also unpacking to say a lot of the inequity and a lot of our historic problems also manifested in these areas. And I don't think we have done enough to turn that tide. And reform is required, as the minister has highlighted, and he is driving the agenda to say, if we don't reform the sector adequately, if we don't professionalize water services provision at a municipal level, we'll keep fighting this battle in the near future.
Mr. Bhagwan, you spoke about rural areas being the ones that, don't have good quality in terms of water. Now, Gauteng was ranked as the province with the highest percentage of drinking water systems with excellent or good quality at 62%, followed by the Western Cape province at 50%. What could be the reason? And, when you look at these provinces, they are mostly in, not so rural, but mostly urban.
Yeah, so, one of the benefits that we have in our institutional model is that many of our metro areas are supported by very good and competent water boards, okay? That are, what I'm saying, in my own experience, they very, what you would call technologically advanced, very well capacitated with the greatest skills and technologies, okay? Of course, they do have the odd problems now and again. But I think that with the municipal support systems at an urban level, where at the metro level and the big cities, where they have the skills and capacity, you see that, water supply and services are at a fairly good and operational level. Of course, we have issues of high levels of leakage and water losses, etc., which we have to tackle. But these are, all the elements, in in us working together in trying to fix these problems.
So the minister said municipalities with poor water quality should see this as an opportunity to improve. How easy or difficult can this task be?
Look, like I said, that, in my own experiences over the years, 60 to 70% of the problems are governance related, are institutional related. The infrastructure is there, the systems are there. If we can fix the governance and the institutional issues, and this relates to getting the right people, the right skilling, the right funding for operation and maintenance, getting the revenue streams up for people to acknowledge and pay for, the good service they get, etc., we can turn this tide. It is possible, okay? And many countries in Africa have shown this pathway around how reform in water services by bringing professionalized water services institutional capacity has done to turn around those systems, etc. So I think it's time for us to also follow that pathway and talk about how we professionalize water services in this country. And I think the minister and the department have already taken the step in the direction through the revision of the water services bills and legislation, etc., to start the process of this pathway.
So, Mr. Bhagwan, the quality of water is said to have decreased, but does this mean that I can still drink the water, or do I always have to boil water before I drink it, or should I just resolve to buying bottled water?
Well, look, the beauty is that the department has set up the IRIS system where you can log in to get real-time information on how systems are performing and latest updated water quality data that is submitted by the municipalities themselves, and then the regulatory processes of the water department also regulating water quality from many of these systems. So, like I said, that, and the minister was quite, open and said that in the Northern Cape, you have to think about twice before you drink water from a tap. The situation is such that the levels of confidence are not high. So there are many other places in towns and cities in the country, when you look at the blue drop and the green drop report, that show very low levels of performance and confidence. And in those areas, I would really consider using other forms of safe water. And if I'm living in those areas, definitely, I would encourage people to add a intervention of disinfection, either through chlorine, etc., just to make water safe, or boil water. But that's the situation at the moment until we turn this tide.
Mr. Bhagwan, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. That is the Executive Manager at the Water Research Council, Mr. J. Bhagwan, talking to us about the decline in the quality of water in the country. Further saying that in rural areas, most communities there are the ones that are suffering from poor quality in terms of water.